as this extraordinary circuit and venue unfolds ahead of us. Welcome to Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Ferrari Challenge, Trofeo Pirelli, about to take to the track for their second race of this weekend. The Ferrari Challenge, this phenomenal one-make series, which really offers compelling racing and compelling participation, of course, for the drivers as well. Alongside me, Greg Creamer. Thanks for inviting me here.
Hey, thanks for coming and enjoying it here. And this is such an iconic venue, the Pagoda. So many very special things here. There's a museum that is absolutely superb, and the history that is available to tour in this museum. And if you get here when there's nothing happening on track, part of the tour can be an actual ride around this track with a tour guide. So it's a very special place to come to. Even more, it's a very special place to be able to race on, and that's what these Ferrari Challenge drivers are relishing this weekend.
Absolutely extraordinary opportunity to be at this iconic place, and there you can see the cars lining up on the grid then for their second race of the weekend. 30 minutes of racing to come from Ferrari Challenge Trofeo Pirelli here at Indianapolis. And the Trofeo Pirelli race yesterday was an exciting one. We're expecting much the same today, and as you can see, we've already been to Austin, Sebring, Laguna Seca and Montreal. Here we are in Indianapolis, and we reach the sharp end of the championship now with just this race, and then Homestead, Miami, ahead of the Finale Mondiale event in Mugello in Italy to come right at the end of October. So still plenty of points up for grabs, but all of a sudden those points, from my mind, seem to become more crucial now.
They do. I mean, with less and less opportunity to earn points as the season starts to wind down, earning them, preserving them, defending them, all becomes a little bit more sharp-edged here as you get deeper into the championship. And there are lots of things that are at play, certainly. And with a win is 20 points, 15 for second, there's a big swing there. But if you have a weekend where you have some sort of contact, an incident, whatever, everything can turn upside down. So as you get deeper into the season and the more intense some of these points battles become, your level of driving needs to step up to be more and more precise to make sure you don't get into any kind of trouble. And that's part of why we're looking at the Trofeo Pirelli category of cars. These are the drivers, even in the AM category here, have a little bit more experience in these points battles, are just fierce.
So here we are then, Indianapolis, Indiana, USA, of course, for Ferrari Challenge North America. And you would say, Greg, we're in the middle of the breadbasket?
The breadbasket,
okay.
Yeah. This is the beautiful sort of east to Midwest farming region of the United States, and Indiana is absolutely right in the middle of Hoosier country. It's just absolutely fantastic, and the racing capital of the world here. There's downtown Indianapolis, and this is the track that they will be running on today. And you can see there's a couple of spots where you're up on the actual oval itself, and turn one, which is the bottom left-hand corner, that very tight right-hander leads you into the infield. And that first section, it's technical. Turn 4 is important because you got to get through that quick left-right flick, that's 5 and 6, onto that Holden back straight with some serious pace, because you can overtake into that tight turn 7. But it's from 7, and especially from 10, which is the top of the corner of the page, 11, 12, as you're up onto the oval for a minute, then you do that hard right, and then that tight left, and then that last corner, 14, is everything to build speed onto this front straight and head down and maybe be able to make a pass down into 1 or to defend a pass here, and it is warm.
Yes, 31 degrees, the air temperature, track temperature 35 degrees, and Shay will know all about that. She's on the tarmac.
Can feel it coming up through my shoes, gentlemen. We have 15 cars going to take the start of the race today because, as you can see, Ross West not here. Had an overheating issue actually in morning warm-up, which means that he will not be taking part in the race today. So starting last will be Brent Holden, a guy to keep your eyes on. He won the second race at Montreal. Didn't have a great run yesterday, but this is race 2. He knows how to win race 2s. Next row up ahead of him, Chris Carell, running in the car that has been driven in the past by Thomas Tipple. It's got the number 7 on the side. It is Chris's car. And alongside him, the pole sitter yesterday from TPM, John McGrew, in car number 23. He finished second in yesterday's race. Next row up, we've got two of the most fun characters in the paddock. Barry Zeckerman in car number 99, alongside Dave Musial in car number 30. Dave was watching the race earlier on, trying to pick up little tidbits of what he could do and excel at for today's race. I think he might have learned a thing or two. In front of them is the next row up. This is row number 5. Mark Muzo is starting in car number 13, and alongside him, Jim Whalen, coming back to the series again. He's run Ferrari Challenge in every form on every continent. And guess what, guys? He's got wins in all of those as well. We come up to row 4, where we find Danny Baker, who has wins this year, but not in this class of racing. Well, his coach, none other than Steph Wilson, who has led laps in the Indianapolis 500, gave him some pretty good advice to keep his head on his shoulders and get around the car next to him, Neil Gahani, race winner from yesterday in car number 36. Neil looking very calm and poised, ready to go out and get another win today. In order to do so, he's got some pretty stiff competition, including pro cars in front of him. On the right, we have the yellow car. Trevor Beck, coming into the series, made his debut yesterday. A puncture took him out of contention fairly early on, but he was still impressive with his lap times. And alongside him, Joel Weinberger in car number 6. He starts 6th overall on the grid, but he won't be there for very long. Coming up to row 2, this is where it starts to get really exciting. Martin Burrows, he's finished 3rd more times than he would like this time in the season, but he does have a race win. He got that at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. French-Canadian is very quick, but alongside him, Mark Fuller from Scuderia Corse. Why is that important? That car, one of 2 Scuderia Corse cars on pole position here today. Mark with a great turnaround, and his coach, Alessandro Balzan, threatened to fire him if he didn't improve his performance. Well, he went out and got the pole position. The game was accepted. And to the front row of the grid, we have number 33, Benjamin Hites, trying to keep this championship fight alive against the man who is on pole, another Scuderia Corse contender. That would be Mr. Cooper McNeil in number 63. Yesterday, it was Hites who won the race, who got the honor of kissing the bricks. Today, Cooper would really like it to be him. He only did 1 lap in qualifying, did McNeil. Kept a lot of life in those Pirelli P0s. Hites did a lot more running, and now it's going to be time for the drivers to show us what they have left in their tires. You see the car on the right, Hites, the car on the left, McNeil. Who is going to come away with the win? But guys, don't forget about the cars further back on the grid, because anybody could come away with a win. We are 15 seconds away now from the start command to be given. Drivers sitting in their cars. You see all the fans running on them. People are getting overheated. They are ready for this to happen. Drivers, start your Ferrari engines.
Great job once again, Shay. Loaded with good information, and she makes a really good point. Yes, you got McNeil and Hites up front. We know their speed, but we have seen Martin Burrows pull off some amazing stuff going into the first turns of races and lead and then be able to defend and even, as she said, bring home that win. And she makes a very good point, too, for a Scuderia Corsa. Good day in qualifying today. McNeil on pole overall and Fuller on pole in the Trofeo Pirelli AM category. The guy that I'm going to be keeping an eye on here is Trevor Beck, because I think he just continues to get more and more comfortable in this 488 Challenge car. It's a little different than the GT3 car that he's driven before.
Sure.
But he's really starting to figure it out, and this the potential for some absolutely superb racing throughout this field.
The one that I was going to keep an eye on lines up alongside Beck, and that is Joel Weinberger, because I felt he looked really racy yesterday, and let's see what he can do today. But I think what will be critical for this with regards to the front row as the cars leave the grid now heading off on their formation lap is the very good point that Shay, as you say, exceptionally informative grid walk, always enjoyable. Cooper McNeil has kept life in those tyres. He did not do anything like as many laps as Benjamin Hites, and therefore Cooper McNeil should have not only the advantage of starting from pole position, but I would suggest the advantage of having more life in those tyres.
Well, absolutely. And in an earlier race today, in the Copa Shell race, we saw Mark Issa, who had a couple more laps than McNeil did, but he only had one real flyer and then had a couple others that were a little bit off and then parked it. Said, I'm not going to risk the tires. And there was a caution middle of the race, and when the restart happened, I think some of the drivers in this heat now, they had used up a little bit too much tire. He had lots left, and Cooper knows that game as well. And the temperature continues to climb. We're now up to 86 degrees here, and this is a track that was really susceptible. You can see how dark that track is.
Yes.
It absorbs heat, and that transfers through to the tires. It can take a bit of a toll, and this is where you're in that conundrum. I want to attack, I got to get going, I want to race, but I don't want to be slow in the last 10 minutes of this race either. I need to manage things.
Here's the grid in full for you then. Cooper McNeil, Benjamin Hites on the front row, Martin Burrows, Mark Fuller then P3 and P4. Then it is Beck and Weinberger who occupy the third row of the grid. for Ferrari Challenge Trofeo Pirelli. Their race 2 about to get underway. Neil Kahani from P7, then Baker from P8, Mark Musso P9, and James Wyland from P10. Dave Musial and Barry Zeckelman are side by side, P11 and P12 on row 6 of the grid, ahead of Chris Carell, John McGrew, Brent Holden, and Ross Twest, then rounding out the 16 cars that are ready to contest in this Ferrari Challenge North America Trofeo Pirelli race. We are on the formation lap. The car's being led around by the Hublot safety car. Then they will line up side by side. They'll grid up, and then they will head towards the yard of bricks and get this 30-minute race underway.
And we've got this drone follow shot that is really, really sharp. Looks great here. And this is that section we were talking about. You come out of 10, and you have to start getting that power down as you're working your way through 11. And then you get to the certain point here where you end up onto the banking. Right there, you can just say eat this. As he makes that little transition, there's a little bit of banking there. If you time it right, it can help null out if you've got a little bit of a push going. But you don't want it to scrub too much. And then right here where the Hublot safety car is going to continue straight off the track, this turn right here, you want to give it up. Exit about halfway through on that corner. Don't track all the way out and get the run through 14 onto the front straight. At this stage, of course, under control of the pole sitter, Cooper McNeil. We're ready to go racing.
So for Benjamin Hedges, he's got to keep his championship hopes alive. Of course, he has. The points leader, Cooper McNeil, right alongside him, going from pole position. So as they head towards the timing line then, and the lights go green, it's Cooper McNeil and Benjamin Hedges with the drag race to turn number 1, which really rather suspect that Cooper McNeil, having the inside line here, will be able to convert that pole position into P1 in the race. Just squeezing Benjamin Hedges, who tries to get alongside Cooper McNeil, and they do go side by side through the race. Now Benjamin Hedges could have the lead here. Well, they are side by side, and they remain side by side. Benjamin Hedges is not prepared to give this up. Cooper McNeil is relegated to P2. I really didn't see that coming, Greg.
No, that was an absolutely brilliant start by Hedges. Squeezed Cooper a little bit the last second down into 10. And that got Cooper. He had to give it up just a bit. Tried to stay with him. But again, Cooper is playing the long game here as well, obviously. He realized that if there's contact, he could be the one that would spin. And Hedges could continue on. Said, I'm going to live to fight a little bit later in the race. He knows he's got those tires. That's part of the confidence package here. But how about the start of Mark Fuller? Brilliant. Up into 3rd overall for the pole sitter in Trofeo Pirelli Am.
But will this have heightened his dander in terms of Cooper McNeil? Will he be cross now and all of a sudden become very, very aggressive? Because Benjamin Hedges is beginning to open up just a couple of car lengths gap, isn't he, between himself and Cooper McNeil? You're absolutely right. It's a long game in terms of the points haul, and of course Cooper McNeil drove very sensibly and very mature drive yesterday to bank as many points as possible, but leading the race is Benjamin Hedges, which we certainly didn't expect going through turn number 1. He was really committed to that, and all of a sudden now Mark Fuller is coming under a bit of pressure. Mark Fuller, of course, a brilliant job right at the start of the race.
Yeah, and that's Burrows now who's trying to get back. He's got the inside. Boy, you can see how deep Fuller went on the brakes before he jumped on him a little too deep, and that has allowed Burrows to sneak through. Weinberger might be able to take advantage, and no, Fuller able to just hang on, but look how close Weinberger is.
Well, Joel is one that I said I wanted to keep an eye on. Oh, and he got it very wrong going into that turn, Greg.
A lot of rotation at the back of the car there, and again, it's going to take a lap or two for these tires to get up to the temperature, and thus this pressure that they are set up, that these cars are set up for. You have to be a little bit mindful of that here. And then that yellow Ferrari with the blue stripe, Trevor Beck, is feeling some heat now from Danny Baker in the number 21 right behind him, and then Mark Musso.
So Mark Musso then is currently leading James Wyland. James Wyland himself is under a bit of pressure from an out-of-class driver, Neil Kahani, who is running in P10 overall, but Kahani is P3, of course, within class. So Neil Kahani trying to get past that James Wyland car and get the fight on to the remaining AM drivers further up the order. So there is Mark Musso then, and there you can see Neil Kahani dives and takes a look at the inside of the Jim Wyland car, but thought better of it to scratch in the better part of valor there, because for sure there would have been contact between the two of them. So Wyland, of course, is trying to keep on terms with the car that's directly ahead of him, and that is Mark Musso. It's P6 and P7 in terms of Trofeo Pirelli. So the car's up onto the start-finish straight, and wow, what an exciting opening.
Absolutely exceptional, and Hedges has set fast lap now to 128.9, and Baker set fast lap in the AM category to 130.2. just to give you the reference point, as we go back, watching here, Weiland and Gahani, different categories. Weiland running in the Trofeo Pirelli class, Gahani in the AM category. And then up here, we see the battle as Weinberger continues to attack on Fuller. And Weinberger realizes that if I don't get through here on Fuller, I really want to be able to get up and battle with Burrows for a podium here. And Fuller showing some pace. Now Weinberger got that great run. Does he get down to the inside? And I think that was Fuller being very, very smart there, saying this is not a battle for class. I've got a number of cars between me and second in class.
Yes.
He's coming from way back. Let him go.
Let him go. That was very sensible driving. You're absolutely right. But Joel Weinberger now, his quest is to try and get on terms with Martin Burrows. And there you can see as Beck is the next one to try and have a go, isn't he?
Ooh, you don't see a lot of passes in there. You can do it, obviously, but he never telegraphed it, and so I don't think Fuller really expected that move at all.
But it was very good driving from Fuller, wasn't he?
Absolutely.
He didn't defend it too hard because that could have caused problems. So Beck goes through now. So Benjamin Hites leading from Cooper McNeil. 1.2 seconds the margin then as they cross the timing line. And Joel Weinberger now up to that P4 place in terms of Trofeo Pirelli. So Benjamin Hites, Cooper McNeil, Martin Burrows, Joel Weinberger, and of course Beck now is P5. Best of the AM drivers, Mark Fuller then, who is running in P6 overall.
The thing for him, and when we get a shot, you can see him coming into frame. He had 3 cars between himself and Baker. Now he's got 1, Muzo, in that blue and yellow car. And so the margin between first and second in the AM category now is that white car back to that red, white, and black machine that just went through frame here. So that battle is starting to get really tight.
So yes, he needs to keep Mark Muzo there, doesn't he? But just as I mentioned that, he does not. And that means all of a sudden this AM battle is going to be on, isn't it? Because Mark Muzo has gone through. That means that Mark Fuller is well within the target size of Baker.
Absolutely. And behind Baker, you've got Weiland. Then you've got Gahani, who is third in the AM class. So just a lap ago, there were big gaps between first to second, second to third. And now those are all evaporating here with Muzo getting through. And it's going to see now whether Fuller can just sort of calm down, find that speed that he certainly has, and really be able to battle with Baker. And Baker, of course, trying to prove something after that incident late in the race yesterday.
Yes.
That he's fast. Now he wants to show, okay, I can race well here too. And it was just an intense battle that he and Musial had that ended up with that joint spin. So we'll see what it plays out.
Baker's exit from turn 14, he was much higher, wasn't he?
Yes.
So yeah, you can see how Baker really has reeled in Fuller now. We know Fuller's got the pace. He delivered in qualifying. He's got to deliver in the race now, and all of a sudden the pressure is really on him because the Ferrari Palmbridge driver Baker is right behind him now. Gahani and Weiland continuing to fight behind those two. James Weiland, of course, running P7 in class, but P9 overall.
Here's Fuller, and he's calmed down. He got back into his rhythm, and he's been able to gap Baker just a bit. That's what he needed to do here. It'll be interesting to see. Baker still has fast lap in the race, but that was a couple of laps ago here, and Fuller seems to have found an answer here. Interestingly, it's going to be how hard does Weiland fight Gahani if Gahani continues to be very aggressive. And for Weiland, he's well back in his class right now, sitting 7th in this category, so I don't think he's going to be any too friendly to anybody because he wants to stay in position and maybe be able to move up a bit. There's Fuller. Look at Muzo up front now is tracking Beck just a little bit in that battle for the top 5.
So the number 42 car of Mark Fuller then, with Baker behind, running P1 and P2 with regards to AMS. And then, as you said, it's James Weiland who's really under pressure now, I think, from Neil Gahani. Gahani is close now to James Weiland as he's been all race long, certainly for the first 8 minutes of this race. 30-minute race duration, of course, in Ferrari Challenge. And there's a little battle going on as well here with two of perhaps the most attractively liveried cars that we see, Barry Seckelman and Dave Musial.
Yeah, absolutely, and right with him is Holden, but now you can see Trevor Beck is in defense mode as Mark Muzo is in full attack mode. Quick flick through that left-right. And here comes Muzo now trying to take a run on Seckelman. Barry was able to get that power down. Here comes Muzo deep down into turn number 7 and is able to get it woed down enough that he doesn't overrun it too bad, and he's through. Nice move there. That's for 5th.
Seen some brilliant overtaking from Mark Muzo, haven't we?
Yes, we have.
So now he ahead of the Bet car. So that, of course, for P5. The race being led by Benjamin Hites, who's really stretching his legs now. He's got 2 seconds margin over Cooper McNeil, which I am surprised by. Cooper McNeil, again, being very sensible. He's got 2.6 seconds over Martin Burrows. But this is the number 13 car then of Dave Musial, of Mark Musso, I beg your pardon, who we've been watching. Of course, another battle going on between Dave Musial and Barry Zeckelman. But this is James Wyland and Neil Gahani. So James Wyland, for the moment, is still able to show a clean pair of heels to Neil Gahani. As Shane mentioned pre-race, James Wyland, who's raced on every continent of the Ferrari Challengers. Now, Gahani just takes a look at the inside, the cars. You can see the front end really compress under braking. Good racing room left by James Wyland, who didn't defend that stoically. And therefore, Neil Gahani, after a few laps of trying, has managed to go through on James Wyland.
You can see Gahani got in a little hot, ran wide, and I think Wyland, it was a smart move. He let him through, was thinking if he overcooks it, I'm just going to square up underneath. If he doesn't, if he gets it stopped, well, good on him. It was a nice pass and good respectful racing, and you like to see that as there. Just had a look at Weinberger running in the 4th spot, and there is your leader, Benjamin Hites, and that margin is just about 2 seconds. It has been for the last few laps, and you really wonder here how hard both of these guys up at the front are really pushing at this stage, knowing they've got to keep these tires alive for another 20 minutes of racing.
Well, of course, Benjamin Hites is the one that really has got to push, because Cooper McNeil has got the cushion of being in a comfortable position with regards to the Drivers' Championship. This man, the car, the centre screen right now, Benjamin Hites, he's the one that's got to do all the work, isn't he? And it's not going to be long before he's going to be reliant upon some poor results for Cooper McNeil to assist him in the championship. And when you start having to think like that, so what he's going to do here is try and max his points haul from today's race. And I have to say, I'm very, very surprised that he's been able to build up a margin of 2.3 seconds, knowing that Cooper McNeil only did 1 run in qualifying. And therefore, the life in those tyres of that WeatherTech number 63 car should be better, shouldn't they? Is he going to have a late race lunge towards Benjamin Hites? Is that when the car is going to come good? Because Benjamin Hites, presumably, he's going to suffer tyre deg first, isn't he?
He should, certainly. And I think Cooper and the coaching and the crew at Scuderia Corsa, along with Cooper, have looked at this and said, look, drive to a certain pace, perhaps. Yes. Don't get caught up in chasing him down. Just stay close enough to keep him honest and have him have to push a little bit.
Yes.
And your tires are going to be better late, and wait for, at a certain point in the race, 15 minutes in, halfway, 10 minutes to go, somewhere in there, drop the hammer. And at that point, hopefully from the crew's perspective, hopefully Hites' tires are a little bit off. But in that last lap, Hites took 4/10 off of Cooper and opened that margin up from 1.9 to 2.3 seconds. I'm not sure Cooper wants to be giving up gaps quite at that chunk.
It the bigger the gap gets, the harder it's going to be for him to really mean at the end of the race, even if he has got better tyres. Because once you've got to haul down that gap, that's going to be hard work. And now it's palpable, isn't it? It's really noticeable, the gap between P1 and P2. Has to be said, the pace that those two are showing relative to the others, they're stretching their legs, aren't they? They are. Martin Burrows is not in contention. There you can see just into shot is Martin Burrows then in P3. And Joel Weinberger, is Joel Weinberger just bringing down the gap? I don't think he is at the moment. I think Burrows has got it all completely under control. And he's driving quite nicely there in P3. He's not being threatened immediately from behind. But he's certainly not chasing Cooper either.
Exactly. And that last lap, Hites added another 0.3 to his lead. It's up to 2.6. So this is interesting to see just how this is playing out here. There is a look at Weinberger in that very distinctive black and red split right down the center nose on that beautiful Ferrari from Continental Autosport. And then behind him, the Muzo and that blue with the yellow trim Ferrari and the all-yellow entry of Trevor Beck. That's the battle for 5th and 6th. In the overall order, and then Fuller behind him now still holds on to the lead in the AM category. But this is interesting. Once Gahani was able to get through on Weiland, the margin right now between 1st to 3rd, 7th to 9th overall in AM is down to less than a second between those three.
So that's where the big race could come, couldn't it?
Yep, here it is. Kahani attacking right now in Baker.
Well, you see now, this is playing into the hands of Mark Fuller, isn't it? Mark Fuller is able to escape from the attentions of Baker because Baker is having to think about defending from Neil Kahani. We already know how racy Neil Kahani is today. And just look, he's all over the back of that car. And Neil Kahani's trying to fight here. This is, of course, for P2 in the race, the number 21 car.
And there's
Baker.
a little slide right there by Baker and Kahani. If he can just get a smooth, quick run here. We've seen how good he is down on the brakes into turn number 1. I think he may have given a little bit up there, thinking that maybe Baker was going to slide more than he did and didn't want to get caught by it, because I really thought Kahani had an opportunity here.
Well, he closes under braking, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
So Kahani looks, perhaps a bit too keen on the brakes there, because he ran a bit wide, didn't he? And that has allowed Baker just to escape a little bit. But I think the charge will come back, and I think the challenge will come back as well. And here comes James Wyland back into it now. Kahani got past Wyland earlier on in the race. And now, for my money, it looks like James is coming back at him now. So, of course, they're in different classes here. So Kahani doesn't really have to worry too much about Wyland behind him. What he does have to worry about is the car of Baker escaping from him. Oh, and you can see the back end of the car just started to slide on the Neil Kahani car. We know that from the early stages of this race, he's pushed as hard as he possibly can, and presumably, therefore, he's taken quite a lot out of his car.
I think that's entirely possible, certainly. I also think that Neil is just good. He's good on the brakes.
Yes.
He's okay with the car dancing on the brakes just a little bit. And so that's interesting. You know, into turn 1, the margin out of turn 1 between Baker and Wyland really didn't change. It was Kahani running a little deep and losing some of that ground. Meanwhile, some interesting information from pit lane. Shay?
I just checked in with the Scuderia course team for Cooper McNeil and said, is he keeping anything in the tank? They said, no, he is pushing. They just admitted that bench beneath this is really good here. Cooper is still hoping that by the end of the race, he will have the better tires. But it's not like he's not trying right now, guys. Bench beneath this is just on fire.
Well, he is hooked up as well. We were watching that battle. Yeah, I was just looking at that, watching that battle in the M category, and Itez still holds fast lap and has stretched that margin, as you said.
So whether Cooper McNeil is throwing everything at it or not, Benjamin Hites has certainly got the answer for him, hasn't he? It was a brilliant,
thus far.
It was a bold move right at the start of the race, but fair play to him. Here comes Neil Kahani once again, and this is a terribly exciting battle in the AM classification then, and the fight is going on for the P2 place, which, as I said earlier, it just plays nicely into the hands of Mark Fuller, who's untroubled by these two because they're too busy fighting amongst themselves. But for the moment, Kahani has not been able to do anything to get past Baker. Baker has been really, really good in terms of defending, and that makes it, of course, ever more difficult for Neil Kahani to try and find a way past him. But try as he might, he will continue that quest for the remaining 13.5 minutes of this race, I feel sure.
Well, the important thing for Kahani here is that he's been able to put a little bit of breathing room between himself and Wyland, so he doesn't have to be looking in those mirrors. Ooh, and there Baker ran wide, got in real hot, and around the outside goes Kahani. And then he shuts the door. That's going to get Baker to have to check up just a little bit. Boy, Kahani played that to perfection. Got Baker to overrun turn 12 and then drove right around the outside of him in 13 and closed the door. Beautiful.
So that was the pressure that was being put on him, wasn't it? So Kahani played a blinder there, didn't he? And now can Neil Kahani get after the AM race leader, Mark Fuller, in car number 42. Just see it disappearing the left-hand side of your picture there as Kahani goes wide, and that plays back into the hands of Baker.
Oh, man.
So Baker and Wyland here. Bear in mind, James Wyland, of course, is one of the Trofeo Pirelli drivers. Therefore, he's not really in this battle, but he's going to have a go here. Looks at the inside of Baker. Well, it's all as we were then for the moment, but I thought that was all going to change. So Neil Kahani, that was a big save from him, to be fair, from a mistake.
It was huge. I mean, he was able to hustle Baker into a mistake over in 13 and 12, and then had his own big moment down into turn 1. And there's the Kahani gang that are just kind of watching what's unfolding here. And he has been awfully effective in spots, and he's good on the brakes, but he's getting a little bit too aggressive on the brakes down into turn 1. Let's go back and take a look at what happened when he got Baker into this little mistake heading down into that turn 12 area of the track. And Wyland after he attacked into the turn 4 area and had to absolutely get on the binders, now has lost touch with those two guys just a little bit.
Well, extraordinary driving that we are seeing, and I think you're absolutely right. You know, Neil Gahani seems to be able to drive that car, and even though you and I would describe that car as sometimes being a bit loose, it seems to suit his driving style, doesn't it? And Gahani, for sure, is beginning to reel in Mark Fuller now, I think. So Mark Fuller is leading this AM classification. That's the man that's P2 at the moment, Neil Gahani, the Continental Autosports driver, and then P3 is Baker.
Well, Gahani was absolutely flying. Then he had those issues in turn 1, and you've got to believe that the team and the coach may have been saying, remember the old adage, sometimes slow down, go faster. And that means basically slow down a little sooner going into turn 1, stay on your line. You've got the speed. He did it that time, and look how much ground he's already made up on Fuller.
Right, Fuller, all of a sudden, his rearview mirrors are full of the number 36 Neil Gahani car. So Fuller has to go into full defense mode now because Gahani is, what have we got, 10 3/4 minutes of this race left. Plenty of time for Gahani to try and find the opportunity to put himself at the head of the standings, and he's getting ever closer to Fuller. Fuller brakes. You can see the brake discs light up then under the pressure of the braking, and it's now that Neil Gahani wants to maintain the pressure and get Mark Fuller just to make the tiniest of mistakes, just to lose concentration for a millisecond, and that would be enough because we've already seen Gahani will be through like a viper waiting to pounce.
Absolutely, and if he is close enough, you know he will give it a serious go down into turn 1, but Fuller that time getting out of 14 rather nicely, and Gahani, unless he gets a big toe, I don't think he's going to be quite close enough to try anything here at this stage, and does not. And that was a pretty smart move to not go after it. One of the reasons that Gahani, I think, is really up on the wheel is the point leader in this category coming in, Ziad Gandour, not here this weekend.
Sure.
So this is going to give him not only an opportunity to take the point lead, but if he can win it, he can max out in terms of the winner's points. That'll give him a really stout margin at this stage.
Almost side by side
Yes.
coming out of that turn, but Mark Fuller, he took just a look at the inside, and again, that was just to show his face into the rearview mirrors of Mark Fuller. But to be fair, Mark Fuller at the moment is undaunted by that hard-charging Neil Gahani car right behind him, and Fuller, he's still able to defend, but for sure, Neil Gahani's going to have a go when he can get the opportunity, and he tries to maintain the pressure here. Mark Fuller yet hasn't bowed to that pressure and hasn't made an error, but Gahani is certainly pushing him as hard as he possibly can. Again, the suspension compresses the front end of the car, drops down then as they brake really hard into this turn. Fuller very aware of the fact that Neil Gahani is right behind him, but Baker is closing in a bit now as well. Completely different line there from Neil Gahani to Mark Fuller.
Yeah, and I think Gahani was setting up to try and get this run he's talking about, and Fuller exited through 13, used up a little bit more track than he wanted, but Gahani swung so far over to the other side to try and square up.
Yep.
Any advantage he had was somewhat nulled, and this is one of those scenarios where you're just referencing off the guy in front of you, figuring out what I need to do. Do I need to change something to get after him here? And don't forget about Danny Baker. He's still right there.
Yes.
And if these two guys get into each other, it's a little side-by-side move somewhere, Baker could certainly still pounce and be a player here. And Baker's, unfortunately for him, has got his eyes a little bit in those mirrors because Weiland just refuses to let them go.
Here comes Gahani again.
He does it
with
again.
And this time he's switched to the inside. Now can he outdrag? Going into this turn then, Mark Fuller on the left-hand side of the picture to the right-hand side of the picture. Neil Gahani carrying much more speed, but he does manage to get the car slowed down. Baker comes in now as well. So Fuller is under threat now from Baker.
That was close, but Fuller went and made the turn into 8. Baker had his nose right there, and that's what I was talking about, that side-by-side into 7, and Baker joins the battle here. And look at this reaction. They're loving it.
Well, it was brilliant driving from Gahani. He tried that once before, hadn't he, and hadn't been able to get to the inside line, but on this occasion he made it stick. So Neil Gahani then is leading the AM classification from Fuller, who now is feeling the mighty pressure of Baker right behind him, and James Weiland trying to buy into it as well. He's in a different class, of course, but that's irrelevant in terms of the overall positions where the cars finish. But Gahani now, look at the pace he's got, Greg.
That was just phenomenal, and he got a tremendous run from 10 all the way through 14, and that's what opened that up. But where his magic has been in this race, it turns out, other than under the brakes, is he's getting through turn 4 so well.
Yes.
He gets through 5, 6, and just gets these tremendous runs onto the Holden Boulevard infield backstretch.
Proving what you said earlier on about the overtaking opportunity that exists there, and he's certainly played that out, hasn't he? Mm-hmm. And now, well, he is up the road. So there is Mark Fuller then, and he's now having to defend from the Baker car right behind him, and then James Wyland as well. Baker just takes a look, and the car getting very skittish under braking. Oh, that could have been just a little bit of contact between himself and Mark Fuller, and that could have been dreadful news. So Mark Fuller at the moment stays in that P2 position. Neil Gahani, well, has opened up 3 or 4 car lengths. James Wyland right behind Baker. James Wyland is running in P7 in class, but it's P10 overall. So it's Gahani, Fuller and Baker, the 1, 2, 3 in terms of the AMs. But it's this man, Benjamin Heates, who has got, Greg, nearly 6 seconds of margin over Cooper McNeil in P2.
Yeah, and with just under 6 minutes to go in this race, we're well past where if Cooper was driving any kind of strategy to save his tires, he'd have been lighting the fuse to come after him here. And obviously his crew was right. Heates, that TR3 group in the collection entry have got that car absolutely dialed, and Heates is wheeling it. Speaking of wheeling it, Weinberger has made up a lot more ground than we thought possibly on Burrows. He's got that down to under a second. That's the battle for the final podium spot overall, and in Trofeo Pirelli.
Whilst I don't like to hoist my own petard.
Yes, you did say that, didn't you? Hoist away that petard, my friend.
Joel Weinberger is after this P3 place. Martin Burrows there in the number 46 car is... well, he's very aware of the fact that Joel Weinberger is on a bit of a charge here. What have we got? Just under 5 minutes for him to close that gap. But, as you've said, quite rightly, so many times before, Greg, it's all very well closing the gap. You've got to go by.
That's it. Catching and passing, 2 different things here. Weinberger just needs to continue doing what he's doing, and Burrows has to not get himself a little bit rattled here with that big margin going away. And then this battle is a stout one as well. This is 4th in the Pro-Am, or in the Am category here, with Zeckelman, Holden, and Musial having a really strong battle as well.
3 of the most distinctive looking cars in the Ferrari Challenge.
In lockstep here.
Ah, extraordinary. So they really are almost welded together, these 3, in that battle that is going on. Zeckelman, Holden and Musial then for P4, 5 and 6 at the moment.
And joining them in that white car at the back is McGrew,
John
who was
McGrew.
pole sitter in this category yesterday. Didn't get the qualifying run he wanted today. Wow, Musial really ramping that high line, wasn't he?
Wasn't he just? So there is Dave Musial then, who's closing and closing and closing on Holden. Is he going to dive to the inside and try a daredevil move through turn number 1? No, he isn't. And so for the moment, Barry Zeckelman and Holden, it's exactly as they were. Dave Musial then running behind those 2 cars currently. But the one under real pressure here is Barry Zeckelman, isn't it? Barry Zeckelman in the number 99 car for Ferrari of Ontario, with that Holden car of Ferrari right behind him. Oh! Well, that's going to have cost him, and that might just play into the hands of Dave Musial, perhaps.
Yeah, Holden just couldn't keep that nose pinned. He did okay. He didn't.
Yeah.
He just let it have its head and didn't lose a lot of speed. We go back to this great drone shot here, and Holden, he may have that little moment, but he is not relenting his attack on Zeckelman in the least.
Absolutely amazing racing we're seeing from this Ferrari Challenge North America Trofeo Pirelli race. And from the green flag to the checkers, it's been non-stop drama and action, hasn't it?
It has. Little wiggle there under the brakes by Zeckelman. And look at Holden straight lining to the inside.
How did Barry manage to stay ahead there?
Yep. And notice, though, when he realized Zeckelman was going to close the door, he had to brake.
Yes.
And it has given not only Zeckelman a margin, but it allowed Musial right onto his wing.
Now, surely Dave Musial this time, if he can get to the inside line here, potentially going into turn number 1, is he close enough to be able to do so? I think he is. It's whether he chooses to do that or not, because it's so difficult to make it work in that turn number 1. Well, he chooses not to, as they all three close up together, don't they? And joining in the party as well without an invitation is John McGrew.
Absolutely.
Because he can see that if all these three should go awry, he's going to be able to pick up the pieces of this.
Big wiggle there by Zeckelman.
This could yet happen, couldn't it?
It could. And one thing I'm noticing with Holden is he is really good on the brakes. This time it's Musial running way wide. But Holden just really seems to be able to make up big increments under braking here. And Zeckelman now, he's in full defense mode.
Yes.
Just right down the middle of the track.
And of course, it is absolutely his right to do so.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's all for position, and therefore he can put the car wherever he likes. Well, last lap then, Benjamin Hites, forgive me for saying this, 7 seconds.
Yeah.
7 seconds over Cooper McNeil. This has been a masterclass from Benjamin.
It really has. I mean, we've seen Cooper do this over the last few years in this class to others. Rarely get schooled like this from somebody else, and this is just Hites' day, clearly. And again, I think that's, the TR3 and the collection crew gave him a great car. And he is wheeling it superbly. And, you get a good car, you still need the driver to be able to extract the max out of it, and he is doing it. And these four, what a battle they're putting on here as they start the final lap. Big look there. That was Baker looking to get through on Fuller. Ooh.
Well,
so close.
It's now or never, isn't it?
It is.
For Baker. And so Mark Fuller then is having to make the car as wide as possible to try and deny Baker from coming through. Baker is going to have a go wherever he can.
Well, and Baker's insistence here is he's in this point championship.
Yes.
Fuller isn't. He hasn't run the full season. So Baker, he dearly wants this swing of points because it's 3, and he's looking to the inside. He's going to go straight to the apex. Fuller opens the wheel up, hoping he can come down underneath. Baker able to ramp the outside and makes it stick.
That was
so far.
That was a brilliant move, wasn't it? But this has been an exceptional drive from Benjamin Hites, who takes the win then for Trofeo Pirelli. Here comes Cooper McNeil some distance behind. But we stay with this. Going to cross the line and take the win in terms of Trofeo Pirelli AM is going to be Neil Gahani, but the fight is still on for this P2 place. Baker ahead of Fuller.
Fuller, yeah, he's not done yet. Got to get this good solid run here now. Looks like he's done exactly that. Last lap, what a move by Baker. And he will end up with second place points to Gahani as he gets the checker. That's big in terms of the championship as this unfolds. Fuller from pole, still a podium, doing a nice job. And at the end here in this battle, Holden got Zeckelman on that last lap. Wow.
What a race.
Really was. And Burrows did hold on over Weinberger in that battle for the final overall podium spot and the podium in Trofeo Pirelli. But Holden, and he was flying a fighter in that one. He took that dogfight right to the end.
Well, Benjamin Hites, we thought, was going to come under pressure towards the end of the race because of the fact that he'd used much more tyres during qualifying. But you know what? They had just got that car absolutely dialed in, though you make a very fair point. He'd got to pedal it for the whole 30 minutes and pedal it with aplomb. He did. Benjamin Hites, it was a masterclass today. And Cooper McNeil, look at this. This is nice camaraderie.
Yep.
Right alongside saying congratulations. And that's really, really nice to see. Cooper McNeil, again, we're seeing sensible driving from him. He's banking points. Benjamin Hites taking the win from Cooper McNeil and Martin Burrows. And then in the AM classification, Neil Gahani ahead of Baker and Fuller for P2 and P3. Another supreme Ferrari Challenge North America Trofeo Pirelli race.
And you said it right there, sensible driving from Cooper when he realized that I just don't have the pace. I thought I would, but I don't have the pace to deal with Hites. He just found his groove, clicked off laps, still opened up a big margin to give himself a big buffer back to third, took the points as opposed to trying to carry the car, maybe running these Pirelli P0s right off it and then having a big struggle at the end. So he's showing good racecraft. He's showing the big picture view. The frustrating thing for him, he came in after yesterday with a 34-point margin. Well, it's a 5-point swing, and Hites ended up getting the fast lap, so that's a 6-point swing. So that could be 28 points. So he's given it up. And to give you perspective, we have Homestead doubleheader, Mugello doubleheader. There's 88 points left to be won. These championships are on.
Yeah, still everything to play for, isn't there? That's for sure. But we have enjoyed a phenomenal Trofeo Pirelli race too. That's for sure.
Oh, no doubt. Just fantastic.
And, well, every driver giving it absolutely all they could during the course of that race. So, Speedway racing capital of the world here at Indianapolis. What a Ferrari Challenge weekend here. Fitting of such an iconic location. And they're pretty happy.
A sweep of the weekend in terms of wins for the young Chilean driver. What a story it is. That's just incredible. And again, talking about perspective here, Cooper came in with a 38-point lead. Had he swept, for instance, right? That's a 10-point difference. That could have been, and if he got poles, fast laps, you could have left her with a 50-point margin. That's tough, even with 88 points on the line left.
Yeah.
That's tough to overcome. 28 points, a lot easier to overcome.
Absolutely.
That's why this crew and this driver is so elated right now. That
Yes.
and the fact that he just drove a brilliant race. And all right, here we go. The Trofeo Pirelli AM category points, and we knew Neil would take the point lead here. We'll see had Gondor not here, but with that great drive in his run this weekend, you can see he's stretched those points out very nicely. But Danny Baker, that's the reason he was so insistent on that battle here, was he knew I'm still in this just a little bit. And Brent Holden, that pass on Zeckelman late in the going, that gives him some points, and he's still strong. But here's what we're talking about in terms of these points. Cooper McNeil, still a nice margin, but there it is, 28 points. That's a bit different. And Martin Burrows, obviously, is still a ways back. And then Muzo sitting there in the 4th spot. Tipple, he's not running here this weekend. And then Weiland, Schuest, and the rest of the field. But this is really getting interesting at the sharp end of things.
Well, as you say, there's still a lot of racing to come, isn't there? Now, 190 playing 162 in terms of the points. Makes it very compelling when we head off to Homestead, Miami at the beginning of September.
And that is a very tricky, technical little track as well. So it, and you always look at it. What kind of track does a team tend to excel on, and can they repeat it? Well, this is a big, open, technical track.
Right.
Homestead, Miami is a tighter but no less technical track. And if they've got a good setup, and when you've got a track that's a little shorter and still technical, mechanical grip can be a huge story, and that may be the secret that TR3 has. Let's get down to Shea. What a story.
What a day. What a weekend for Benjamin Ites. You did exactly what you needed to do to keep the championship alive. And going into Homestead, you must feel pretty excited about all you've accomplished this weekend.
Yes, it was a very hard weekend. We worked a lot and hard work paid off. So, yeah, it was a good weekend and the pace was good. So in Homestead, we'll try to do the same.
That move on Cooper at the start of the race, though, did you know you had to make it then or never?
I know it was in the first 3 laps or never. So it was all or nothing.
Vive Chile.
Viva Chile. Vamos con todo.
Well, that's understanding exactly what the plan is and having it worked out with the crew to say, look, we think we can do this, but you've got to get to the front. You've got to do it soon while your tires are still have a good life in them. Once you get to the front, you can deal with it then, but get to the front. And he executed that plan to perfection. And then was able to open that margin up. And once again, I think Cooper realizing the scenario when he finally, it really hit that I just don't have that pace today in this myself or the car, whatever combination perhaps. It was like, okay, well, we're going to just do what we need to do. But Burrows, a great run to another podium. Weinberger, a fighting fourth. Muzo and Beck, their great battle. For 5th, going to Muzo, Weiland, and Schuest, completing the field in the Trofeo Pirelli category. And you can see Schuest actually not taking the start due to that earlier problem. Then in the Trofeo Pirelli AM category, Neil Gahani was not to be denied today. And Baker, he understood the picture and went after Fuller and got him on the last lap. Holden getting Zeckelman on the last lap. that has points implications. And then Musial, McGrew, and Carell, they were all in a really good scrap along with Holden and Zeckelman right at the end of this one. So both categories, incredibly close racing. And for Neil Gahani, Shea, what a weekend he's stringing together.
4th win of the year for Neil Gahani, and I think this one might be the one you had to work the hardest for. Hot conditions out there. Does it feel the most gratifying?
Without a doubt, and it was even more than the hot conditions. Danny and Mark are such amazing drivers. There was some hard wheel-to-wheel, and they were just incredible gentleman racers today. It was a lot of fun.
Taking the championship lead going into Homestead, again, a track that you're familiar with, that bodes pretty well.
You know, I hope so. Homestead's a tricky place, so hopefully I can have some good luck there as well.
Well, first, you get to go kiss the bricks again. What was that like yesterday?
It was really hot, actually.
It's not going to be any cooler today.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Shay. Thank you.
Wasn't that nice to hear from Neil Gahani? Just the
Absolutely.
credit he was, and that's something very, very special in the Ferrari Challenge, isn't it? You know, the camaraderie between the drivers, as he says there, they were perfect gentlemen drivers. Made me fight for it, but it was great, hard, fair fight.
Absolutely it was. And here's part of the reward, is the opportunity at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway to spend a moment with this yard of bricks. That was great. Marquisa, what a treat he is.
Oh, it's just,
There they come.
yeah,
All right.
the perfect showman, isn't he?
Yes, he truly is. He truly is.
But then that's what makes people like you and I love this sport.
Yeah, absolute characters. You get the characters in this sport. Here we go. Gentlemen, it's your moment.
No, that's great.
Pretty cool for two of those guys, Horseman and Itez. They got to kiss those bricks twice.
Yes.
So that's real special, obviously. Yeah, just fantastic. And as you said, the camaraderie here, and we've talked about it. You've got this is a place young drivers can come in, learn some racecraft with the great coaching system that's in place with Ferrari Challenge and Corsa Pirelli, and then move on and do other things. Martin Fuentes, who's at championships and Pro Series, and Cooper himself, who does a lot of pro racing as well. But then you've got the people with great talent, but business requirements and life requirements that don't allow them to pursue a pro career, but have great talent and passion for it, and it allows them to come in and have that gentleman driver camaraderie, which is special. Now, here's the next location we're going to, just south of Miami, in the town of Homestead, in the southeastern tip of Florida. And again, it is a oval that's got an infield road course, a very technical, challenging one at that. And I think it's going to really be a neat test for these drivers to get in and these teams to dial up a setup for that track. That's going to be a lot of fun, obviously. So looking forward to that one, Dave.
Yeah, very much. Beginning of September, we head down there. And, we've been treated to an exceptional Trofeo Pirelli race. That's really the highlights here as the cars went going then. We never in a million years expected Benjamin Itez to be able to pull off this move. But Cooper McNeil just getting caught out by the curb a little bit there. That played into the hands of Benjamin Itez, who was able to out-drag Cooper McNeil and put himself at P1. He wasn't going to be threatened from there on in.
No, and then Fuller started from that pole, losing a couple of spots. Beck went through, but then Musso got the run on Trevor Beck. That gave him 5th overall, 5th in Trofeo Pirelli. And then this scrap started here as Gahani started his charge toward the front. First getting by Weiland by going way deep on the brakes.
That was a brilliant move by Gahani, but he made it stick, and it was only the first of many to come, wasn't it? As Baker was the next to fall prey to the Neil Gahani car then in his quest to get up the road.
Yep, he just ran a little wide in a key corner there at 12, and then Gahani down into 7 again, using his braking ability to great effect. Fuller tried to counter. That allowed Baker to get close, and then Baker down into turn 7. Huge in terms of the points. Ran wide, but had the car just enough pace at the exit to hang on to it. And then Itez completes the sweep by 8 seconds.
Extraordinary drive from Benjamin Itez. And there, the celebrations down there in the pit lane and the kissing of the bricks, the tradition here at Indianapolis.